He is known for inspiring theories and movements under the name of Sorelianism. He is recognized for his notion of the power of myth in collective agency. He is Georges Eugène Sorel. Georges Eugène Sorel, a French social thinker and political theorist, was a man of complex ideologies and influential ideas. His philosophy, known as Sorelianism, inspired theories and movements across the political spectrum. Sorel's belief in the power of myth in collective agency resonated with socialists, anarchists, Marxists, and even fascists. It was this notion, along with his defense of violence, that he is most remembered for. Throughout his life, Sorel's political views underwent significant transformations. Initially holding liberal conservative positions, he gradually shifted towards Marxism, social democracy, and eventually syndicalism. He briefly associated with Charles Maurras' Action Française and later wrote for the politically diverse L'Indépendance. However, it was during World War I that Sorel's voice fell silent. It wasn't until later that he openly declared his support for Lenin and moved towards Bolshevism. Sorel's legacy in the interwar period was complex and encompassed both ends of the political spectrum. Many former syndicalists embraced the emerging fascism, influenced by Sorel's ideas. One of his significant contributions, as noted by historian Zeev Sternhell, was his revision of Marxism that broke the traditional link between revolution and the working class, paving the way for the possibility of replacing the proletariat with the concept of the national community. Georges Sorel's intellectual journey and his impact on political thought continue to be subjects of fascination and debate. His theories and ideas have shaped and influenced thinkers across different ideologies, leaving a lasting imprint on the philosophical landscape of the 20th century. Georges Sorel, born in Cherbourg, was an extraordinary man with a diverse career. After attending the Collège Rollin in Paris, he went on to become a chief engineer with the Department of Public Works. His work took him to various places in France and even to colonial Algeria. In 1892, he retired and settled in Boulogne-sur-Seine near Paris until his death in 1922. Throughout his career, Sorel's intellectual pursuits were influenced by Aristotle, Hippolyte Taine, and Ernest Renan. In 1893, he publicly declared himself a Marxist and a socialist. He became involved in Marxist journals and participated in the debate initiated by Edouard Bernstein. Sorel supported Alfred Dreyfus during the infamous Dreyfus Affair but grew disillusioned by the political outcomes of the trial. At the turn of the 20th century, Sorel began to argue that socialism and parliamentary democracy were incompatible. He shifted towards syndicalist positions and contributed to the theoretical development of revolutionary syndicalism through his writings. In 1905, he published his most famous work, Reflections on Violence, which explored the role of violence in revolutionary movements. This was followed by Illusions du Progrès the same year. In 1909, after the defeat of the syndicalist wing of the Confédération Générale du Travail, Sorel briefly aligned himself with Charles Maurras' Action Française, although he did not share their nationalism or political program. He co-founded the journal L'Indépendance in 1911, but disagreements led to the end of the project. Sorel vehemently opposed the Union Sacrée political truce in 1914 and criticized the war. In 1917, he praised the Russian Revolution and even wrote for a Soviet Union publication, expressing admiration for Lenin. It is worth noting that while Sorel's support for Bolshevism is well documented, his alleged interest in the fascist movement is only confirmed by nationalist sources from the interwar period. He was quoted as saying that Mussolini was an extraordinary political genius, but some of his correspondences seem to contradict any political sympathy towards fascism. Georges Sorel's philosophy and writings continue to be studied and debated today. His exploration of violence, his critique of parliamentary democracy, and his contributions to syndicalism offer insights into the complexities of political and social movements. While his views may not align with everyone's beliefs, they serve as a reminder that understanding different perspectives can broaden our understanding of the world and help us navigate the challenges of our daily lives. Georges Sorel, a prominent intellectual figure, was deeply entrenched in the world of Marxism throughout his career. However, his association with the Marxist tradition remains a subject of debate among scholars. While some view him as a proponent of a heroic and aesthetic Marxism, others perceive him as a thinker of decadence. Regardless of these differing interpretations, a closer analysis of Sorel's engagement with Karl Marx reveals his preoccupation with the epistemological nuances of historical materialism rather than a mere anticipation of moral decline. Sorel's philosophical journey was heavily influenced by the ideas of Henri Bergson and Italian idealists. Drawing from these sources, he developed a unique form of Marxism that rejected the notions of economic and historical determinism. Instead, Sorel saw Marxism as an ideology deeply rooted in historical context rather than a social science. For him, it was not just a theoretical framework, but a way of understanding and interpreting the world. In Sorel's view, Marxism offered a lens through which society could be analyzed and understood. It provided a framework for comprehending the complexities of history and the dynamics of social change. By rejecting the notion of determinism, Sorel emphasized the importance of human agency and the role of ideas in shaping historical events. Sorel's approach to Marxism can be seen as a departure from the traditional understanding of the ideology. His focus on epistemology and historical context challenged the prevailing dogmas of Marxist thought. Rather than succumbing to the pessimism that often accompanied discussions of Marxism, Sorel sought to uncover the underlying truths and possibilities within the philosophy. In conclusion, Georges Sorel's engagement with Marxism was characterized by a deep exploration of its epistemological subtleties. His rejection of economic and historical determinism and emphasis on historical context positioned Marxism as a historically situated ideology rather than a rigid social science. While his association with the Marxist tradition may be contested, Sorel's contributions offer valuable insights into understanding the complexities of society and the potential for transformative change. Georges Sorel, a former moderate conservative, found himself drawn to Marxism in the 1890s, driven by scientific curiosity rather than political motives. In a time when Karl Marx's work was still relatively unknown, Sorel aimed to prove that socialism deserved a place in the modern scientific movement. To achieve this, he challenged the common French criticisms of Marxism, particularly its reliance on historical and economic determinism. Through his studies of Giambattista Vico and discussions with intellectuals like Antonio Labriola and Benedetto Croce, Sorel began to see Marxism as a theory centered around class agency within institutions. He believed that the essence of historical development lay in the creative power of collective agency. This led him to reject the idea that Marxism could predict the future based on supposed laws of historical progress. Sorel boldly stated in 1897, "History is entirely in the past. There is no way of transforming it into a logical combination allowing us to predict the future." Sorel argued that the unfolding of this collective creative agency couldn't be solely determined by material conditions. It also had to consider legal, ideological, and cultural factors. In 1898, he wrote, "The development of history cannot be fully deduced from the material circumstances alone." Sorel's philosophy challenged the notion that history could be reduced to a set of predetermined outcomes. He emphasized the need to acknowledge the complexities and influences of various societal factors. Sorel's anti-determinism within Marxism offers valuable insights for our daily lives. It encourages us to recognize that history is not a rigid and predictable path, but rather a result of dynamic and multifaceted interactions. By understanding that our present circumstances are not solely determined by the past or material conditions, we can actively shape our future. Sorel's philosophy reminds us to consider the legal, ideological, and cultural aspects that shape our lives and societies, fostering a more nuanced understanding of the forces at play.
Do you want to explore more philosophers? Who do you want to see featured next? Subscribe and leave a comment below to let me know. I'll see you in the next video.